Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
Hello and welcome to Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. I'm Susan.
And I'm Lisa. Welcome.
We're going to be talking today about scams, particularly scams on the elderly, but different scams and frauds. And this kind of came to us because so many people we know have elderly parents. My mom is almost 90.
Yeah, and my mom is in her late 80s, and we had a situation recently where she was almost taken advantage of, and luckily she knew enough to get in touch with me and talk to me about it, and we started talking about it. And said, you know, a lot of people may not have someone that they can talk to and ask about these kinds of issues, and so we thought this was a really important thing to talk about. And frankly, it can happen to anyone. I read often in the Advocate on the Times-Union, they have an article called The Advocate, where people bring situations where they feel taken advantage of. And it's often, you know, people of all ages. So,
you know, as I began to prepare for the show, I read so much about the victimization of the elderly because they're particularly vulnerable. They were raised in a time to be polite and to be trusting and to give people the benefit of the doubt, which are all really good things. And sometimes it's hard. I know sometimes it's hard for even me, and I can be pretty jaded sometimes, but you know, sometimes it's hard for me to immediately question, doubt, and you know, mistrust someone, which unfortunately is, you have to be on your guard.
yes, but there is also a balance, and I think, you know, what's important, and hopefully what people can take away from today are some ideas, some things to protect yourself, and to, you know, to think through before you take an action that might cost you a good deal of money.
And we have some great guests, and we're going to be getting to them in a minute.
Yeah, so stay with us. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back with our wonderful guests talking about scams and fraud perpetrated against seniors. Hi, welcome back to Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. We're very excited about the guests that we have today to talk about this issue of exploiting seniors and fraud perpetrated against senior citizens. And we have today two guests from the Albany County District Attorney's Office. First, we have Cheryl Fowler, who is the Deputy Chief Assistant Deputy Chief Assistant at the Albany County DA's office, and Kimberly McCoy, who is the investigator at or one of the investigators at the DA's office. Sorry about that. They're used to me. The audience is used to me getting the titles wrong. Anyway, Cheryl, let's start with you. If you could tell us just a little bit about your background and you know why, how you got into this work.
Okay.
DA's office.
Sure. Basically, I started with the DA's office when I was still in law school. Continued after law school and have been there for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So I've handled every type of case imaginable at the DA's office, including these fraud cases and particularly cases against the elderly.
That's great. Well, thank you for being here. And Kim, tell us about you. I know you have you haven't been with the DA's office as long, right?
No, I have not. I've been actually with the Albany Police Department for 20 years. I was a detective there. I retired, and now I work with the Albany County District Attorney's Office as an investigator in their Special Victims Unit.
That's great. So you have quite a background in dealing with these kinds of things.
Yes, I do.
What's the Special Victims Unit?
Special Victims Unit is made up of one bureau chief and I believe 6 ADAs and one investigator, that would be me, and 2 advocates.
And you focus on a particular kind of crime?
Yes, we do. We focus on sexual assaults of children and adults, domestic violence, elderly abuse, and animal abuse. Those are our main areas of investigation and prosecution.
Well, one of the things I really want to make sure that we talk about, so I'm just going to throw it out there to start with, is, you know, what kinds of things should people be looking out for to know if it's a scam, or to sort of be suspicious and maybe even know, you know, they should contact somebody for help or contact your office?
I think the main thing is, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. I think people don't listen to their instincts. And I think you hit on a great point, is that, you know, people have grown up in a certain generation where you have to be nice and polite. And, you know, I was taught that way too. But
Right.
unfortunately, there's bad people out there that want to take advantage of you. And again, unfortunately, the elderly are a target.
Why is that, Kim?
I think for a lot of reasons, that generation, like we talked about. I think also that particular age, most of them are living alone, or they're living with their partner who's of the same age.
And sometimes they don't have a lot of connection with people who can really keep an eye on them, you know?
Exactly. They don't have family in the area because they've all moved away, or the neighborhood isn't the same, but they've lived there for 40 years, but the neighbors have changed, come and gone, and they don't really know the neighbors anymore.
There's nobody really looking out for them.
Exactly.
And it's a complicated world.
It really is.
You know, I know for me, I mean, I'm pretty well educated, and on a good day, all my faculties, but, you know, things are confusing to me.
It is, and especially the criminal justice system. It's confusing for me, and I've been in it for 26 years. You know, somebody who's a victim or a witness going through it, it can be very difficult, and that's why we have the advocates in our office to help them through.
That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, it is.
And I would say too, there's many times there's disabilities we're talking about. Maybe they don't see as well. Maybe they're hard of hearing. You know, other physical disabilities that I would think make people more vulnerable, because they don't necessarily hear every thing that somebody said. You know, somebody may come to their door and offer, you know, this, that, or the other thing, and they don't hear the whole thing. I would think that would influence them too.
Right, and they're very trusting. You know, they're very trusting. Yeah, sure, come on in. You know,
And they want the social contact.
They do, because
Sometimes they're deprived
They don't
of
have it.
social contact.
yes.
and somebody different just to listen to a story. I love listening to their stories. I mean, they have such a great storyline to tell you about their life and, you know, the way it used to be. So I enjoy that, but somebody who's out to scam them, they're just going to go in there to do harm.
Now, Cheryl, tell me, is the whole sort of internet and many elderly people are using email and using computers, is that adding another level to this whole thing?
It is, but I don't think they use them to the extent that that's where most of the scams are coming from. I think it's more, like Kim was saying, they're very, very trusting. And they also, if they don't have a lot of contact or they don't have a lot of family support and they need something done around the house, you know, they're inviting these people in to do this job and that job, and they might do a couple things and you know, they get paid, they realize that, you know, this individual has some money, and then they start taking advantage of them from there. And it's like they're trusting and they want that contact, and they said, oh, you know, so-and-so has helped me, he's done several things for me around the house. We had one case where one of the he was in the janitorial service temporarily in a elderly residence, and he had done some odd jobs for
Like
one
a
of
facility?
Old Hof Shalom, which is a retirement.
Like a retirement community?
Yes.
Yeah, it's apartments, several apartments, and he had this woman who is elderly and has some physical problems and needed rides and needed stuff done, and so he started taking advantage of her and got into her house and took some money from her and started victimizing
It didn't
her.
stop there. I mean, he continued through the whole building.
Right.
You know?
Because he did work for so and so,
Right.
so he must be okay.
You know, so
Right.
he'd knock on the door. Hey, you need, you know, this done or that done. I'm here to help you.
because they do. They need a lot of, little odd jobs done, and, they feel, oh, the building hired him, so we must be able to trust him, and then he ended up taking advantage of a lot of the folks there. And a lot of these scammers, I mean, that's what they'll do. They'll gain your trust,
Yes.
and then they'll use it. And then what happens with, especially with elderly folks, probably everybody, but more to an extent I find with the elderly folks, is they get embarrassed
Yes.
by what's happened, and how could they feel like, how could I be so stupid as to let this happen?
Right.
And then they end up not telling anybody. I mean, we've had victims come, and Kim and I both have sat down with them and said, you're not stupid. He's good at what he's doing. And they fooled you. They not only fooled you, they fooled, other people. And, you're not stupid. It was good for you to come forward. But I think a lot of people do not come forward just because of that embarrassment.
I mean, the ones who come forward are the brave ones. The
Yes.
ones who
Right.
maybe they were embarrassed, but they swallowed that, and then they stepped forward despite their embarrassment. But there's got to be, for each one of those, there's got to be many, many more who don't get to
Right,
that.
because you're dealing with people that maybe, this one particular case, this woman lost her life savings. And so, eventually she found the courage to come forward and tell us what happened. And, we successfully prosecuted that case, not getting her money back. But that was one of her fears. And that I find that when they do lose everything that they have, and they feel like they have no other choice but to come forward,
Yeah.
that those are the people that are coming forward. And then when that person comes forward, maybe other people that have been scammed by the same person start coming forward. But if you have somebody that, they've got taken for what I think is, let's say $10,000, which I think is a lot of money.
But it is a lot of money.
But they may have, a pension and money to live off, so that didn't destroy their life, that they are a little bit less willing to come forward initially.
Right. And then I think that there are people who are stealing, they're skimming little amounts. So that, is it really worth it? Let's say, a person says, well, I lost $50. Is it really worth it?
Well, if they don't feel comfortable calling the police, they can call in the Albany County District Attorney's office. We have a program called SALT, Seniors and Law Enforcement Together. We work with the local police agencies, and they can come call us, they can meet us, we'll talk to them, or we'll even go out to them. Whatever they feel comfortable in doing. We have gone out to a lot of different places. I mean, if you don't want us to come to your house, we'll go to the local library, we'll go to a coffee store, wherever you feel comfortable, and talk to you and tell you your options. And we'll be perfectly honest with you the way it's going to be. And then it's up to them to say, okay, I want to report this. We'll do the crime report. And if they want to follow through even further, we'll be there with them, holding their hand in whatever they need, step by step. We have a coalition where we meet and we discuss the cases, like,
That's terrific.
right, like, can Adult Protective help out here? What do they have that we can't give them? What can they do? Another thing too is the advocates, not only in our office, but the advocates for Equinox. Can they help them out down the road?
So there's a social service component to this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, that's great, because first of all, it sounds so gentle and nice, to be able to be taken care of that way when you feel humiliated or you feel like you
Victimized.
Yeah, and listen, one other thing I think that we have to throw in here is that a lot of elderly are concerned about being put in a nursing home or not being able to control their own environment.
Oh, yeah.
So if they get taken advantage of, they feel like this is a strike against them, and perhaps now they have to go,
But
give
Lisa,
up their control.
that's a good point. That's
That's
a great point that you bring up. And that's why we have the component of, of Adult Protective. The county Adult Protective is they'll come in and they'll say, Lisa, guess what? We'll help you with your finances. We'll be your payee. We'll give you $200 a week, and that's kind of your allowance. You can sign off. You can keep us but they'll help you with your finances. It's not to put you away, but it's to help you understand your finances and everything.
And to like stay in your
Wonderful.
home.
Someone who doesn't have a daughter like Lisa.
Exactly.
Because
Or
there,
you.
there are lots of people like that. I
Or
mean,
their
if-
kids live far away, they don't live here.
Right, but they will do that service for them.
That's
And see, that's something we can't do in the office,
Sure.
and that's where we found that resource.
could somebody just request that service?
Yes, they can. You have to call up, and they'll have to come out and interview you. But
Who is that?
Adult
The
protective.
Adult protective.
Every county has an adult
Yes, they
protective
do.
unit. And my roommate years ago used to work for Adult Protective, so I know enough to be
Well, I mean,
dangerous
I
about
hear
that.
of Child Protective. I've heard
Yeah,
of Child
right.
Protective, but I've never heard of Adult Protective. That's great.
It's not just for the elderly; it's for disabled folks.
Yes.
and,
Right,
all kinds of things. Now, tell me about as an investigator, what are some things you look for in these cases in terms of being able to prosecute them successfully or being able to maybe help the person prevent it from happening again? I mean, tell me about that.
Well, each case is different. Each person is different.
Yeah.
So you have to see, when you interview them, see what's going on in where they live and how involved their family is. Because I hate to say this, but sometimes it's the family's members that are taking advantage of mom.
hate to hear
and dad.
that.
You do,
Yeah.
but unfortunately it's out there. I think that has a lot to do with the economy the way it is. But they see mom and dad have that big stash of money away because they've been saving up their whole life, and you know what? Now I want to be their power of attorney. So, you have to look through all the paperwork. You have to, see who the power of attorney is, who the healthcare proxy is. We have to summons the bank records and go through all that. That's the financial stuff.
Right.
And when we do go through all that, like, we're very honest with the people. We let them know this is where it has led us.
Right.
And a lot of times when they find out that it's their kids, they're like, we don't want anything done.
Right. I can imagine.
And I think that's a double embarrassment, because now they're finding out that their own child is taking their money from underneath
Right.
them. They sold the house from underneath them, or it could be their health care caretaker.
I was just going to ask that.
A home
because
health care.
A lot of people do rely on folks to come in, take care of them, and that's also happening.
And we have a case, right now. I plead to your audience, if they have that, to ask for ID. Just don't let them in because they're saying, hey, I'm from, whatever hospital or from whatever,
That's
program.
a good point, is asking for ID, not just for
Absolutely.
home health care, but
Right.
for example, if you have
NIMO.
anybody coming to
Cable.
your door.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of them have to wear something,
Well,
like hanging on
they
them.
have to show you ID. If you ask them for ID, they have to show
show
you
it.
ID. The
But-
thing that you need to be a little bit careful about is, and I wasn't even aware of this, but if you, like, even a FedEx person that's going to come to your house, they're not always necessarily in a FedEx truck, only if they own the truck. They can, rental trucks and stuff. So if someone's knocking on your door and, they're from Time Warner Cable or, wherever, ask them, to see their ID. And I always say, if you're not expecting a visit, you
Call.
don't open the door.
You don't open the
There's
door and
no, I
call.
mean, you say that with your kids. My kids, from the time they were very little, if you're not expecting anybody, then you don't answer the door. It's the same thing I would say with the elderly. If you're not expecting anybody, don't open that door. The case that we had at the retirement home, the woman opened her door and she felt almost responsible because the guy pushed his way in. And, here's this little 80-year-old sweet woman
She really was.
who, he pushes the door open and he's in and there's nothing that she can do. So, I would always advise anybody that
Right.
if you're not expecting anybody, just don't answer the door. If it's important, they'll leave a card and you can
Or
call them.
with the what do you? I'm going to say everybody's got cell phones now.
Right.
So if I go to my mom's and she's not expecting me, I can call her from the driveway and say I'm here.
Right.
Then she knows it's me rather than just opening
Or
the door.
get one of those little, for like $20, you can get a little
Oh,
peephole
the peephole,
installed.
yeah.
Which I have done as a single woman living alone. I've gotten that peephole installed on more than one door of a place where I've lived, and it has been very helpful and comforting, I have to say. And you know, it's inexpensive, it's simple, and it helps.
And I know I'm sort of changing the subject, but I think, you know, having caller ID and having an answering machine is also really another way, because many people do get scammed over the phone because they can.
Yeah, over the phone
Right.
scams,
Right.
especially around the holidays. I know with my mom, the times that I've been down there, I usually go down right before Christmas. In any given day, she'll get 10, 15 calls from organizations soliciting money. And, you know, she wants to contribute. She wants to be generous. I mean, we all want to give. I think it's a big message in this country to give when you can.
Right.
So, and she doesn't want to say no. She wants to give a little bit, you know. So what do you say to those people?
No.
Never,
say
I
no.
would
Just say
never give
never.
over the phone. Never give
Never.
over the phone.
If they
They're
say-
getting information, they're getting
Yes.
credit card information.
Don't.
They're getting information from you that they can very easily steal your identity. If you want it, and I have done on occasion, I just say, send me something in the mail.
Send me literature.
That's what I always
Yeah,
say too.
that's
I
what I
don't.
say.
My husband and I always say we don't accept solicitations over the phone.
And I guarantee you're not going to get anything in the
Most
mail
of the time
from
we don't.
99% of these organizations, or because you can call up and say you work for anybody, and like we were talking off the air, but you know, there are apps now that you can go and say you want to be calling from the American Heart Association and make that caller ID show up as the American Heart Association when it isn't the American Heart Association at all.
So don't believe it. If it pops up on the caller ID,
Yeah, don't believe it.
necessarily believe it.
Say I'll give to my local chapter or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Right, or send me something in the mail.
Right.
And also, I was reading about, when I was doing research for the show, about people calling in and offering investment opportunities. So there's not just, you know, the charities, right? There's that whole piece, and certainly that's, but also with these investments, or people coming, you know, and saying that there's some kind of investment opportunity. Have you seen any of that happening locally?
What we've
You're
seen-
smiling. I'd say
Yes.
yes.
I mean, we have an ongoing
I got it.
case.
It's right
so
now.
Right
so,
now.
So you can't.
We can't
discuss
talk
it.
about that.
Right.
Yeah. But what we do see is that a lot of people calling up saying, "We're from your bank. There's an issue with your account. Let's verify. Give me your account number." And if it's your bank calling, they surely have your bank account.
right.
But that's their way of getting all your information.
My husband's uncle, that happened to him. They got his account number and immediately went into his account. And, you know, again, we're talking about that embarrassment. He's like, I cannot believe that I did this, but this is what I did. And, you know, they got right into his account immediately. But they said they were from the bank.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to know is the banks will never ask you for your information over the phone or via email. They will never do that. And so if that happens, that's automatically, you know, that's a scam. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that just because it's on the caller ID doesn't mean, you know, let the answering machine pick it up.
Let it pick it up.
You know, if you don't know who it is, don't pick it up. And if you don't know who's at the door, don't answer the door. It's just not worth the potential risk to you.
Right, and then if you're saying, hey, you know, just send me some literature, don't give them your address, because if they don't know who you are, then it's not worth it.
We only have a few minutes left on today, and I want to make sure that if there's any other tips, strategies, things to look out for, anything perhaps that's happening in the capital region that, you know, in particular, because I hear these scams sort of, you know, are like viral, right? They'll happen somewhere else, like
Yeah.
the grandparent scam I've read about. You know, anything like that.
You've
that you
won
wanna
the lottery.
Yeah.
Send $500
Well, I
and we'll
mean-
release the rest
Pay
to
the
you.
taxes. Don't ever send anything to
No.
pay taxes on money that you're gonna get, because you're never gonna get it.
That's right.
You know, one of them that stands out is, you know, an elderly woman went to the mall. She parked in the parking lot. She comes out and there's a woman, not an elderly woman, but, you know, an older woman standing by her car and says, "Oh, your oil's leaking. You know, look at it underneath your car." And you know, there was a spot and fluid. And then she goes, "Oh, my son owns a garage. He's right here. He can take your car right now."
Oh my goodness.
She goes, "Oh, okay." Son takes her garage and says, takes her car and says, "Oh, it's going to cost you $500. She pays him $500, and all it was they threw coffee underneath her car. It was a mother and son
Oh wow.
that was pulling the scam. A mother and son.
Unbelievable.
So that's, you know.
Yeah. So just being vigilant about
Yeah.
these kinds of things, and asking someone that you know for help versus a stranger.
Exactly. You know, if somebody offers you, "I can help you right now," there might be something there.
Just to mention the grandparent scam, since I said it, and I know we're running out of time, but my understanding of this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that somebody calls up and says, "Oh, Grandpa or Grandma, I'm in trouble. It's a big misunderstanding," and then they wait for the person to answer to say, "Audrey or Kim, is that
Right,
you?"
right.
And then they go, "Yes, it's Kim, and I'm in trouble." And then they want you to wire it through Western Union, which means you can never get the money
Right,
back, right?
right.
Have you? Has that happened locally? Because I've read about that on the state website.
I don't know if that exact scam has happened, but
No,
that
we haven't had
type
any.
of thing
Yeah.
has
Similar
happened.
kinds of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've had people call us that said, you know, they're requesting that money go through Western Union. What do you think we should do? And, you know, I would always say never, you know, send it anything.
Yeah.
Because people think that's safe because it's Western Union, right? And it's
right.
not. I mean, it's not if you know who you're sending the money to, but if
Right,
you're sending it to
right.
someone accidentally, and it really does take being willing to think through. You know, does this sound too good to be true?
Exactly.
Is this a smart thing to do? And I think that's really the key. Would you agree?
And I think also one thing that I think is important to say is for anybody that any of this has happened to, don't be afraid of the system, because, you know, a lot of people are afraid of just being in the criminal justice system. You know, they're 80 years old, they've never had anything to do with it.
Right.
And it's just, you know, kind of daunting for them.
Well,
But don't
it's-
be afraid,
it
because
sounds like you're making it almost welcoming in a sense.
We
You know,
are
you do
trying
want
to.
these people to feel like they can come forward. How many cases would you say, and we're running out of time, but roughly how many cases a year would you prosecute on something like this? Is it a dozen, 2 dozen, more?
More.
Yeah.
Wow. So people should know they're not alone, and that this
No,
is
they're
key.
not. They're
Okay.
not.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being here. I mean, this
you're
was
welcome.
real. I
It's an
learned quite a
important
bit.
topic. Yeah,
it is
I
an
did
important
too.
topic, and this is something that people really need to be aware of, so that they can protect themselves and you know, keep the money they need for themselves, right? So thank you very much, and thank you for watching Real
for watching.
Conversations with Lisa and Susan.